FBI Director James Comey testifies on Capitol Hill on Russian interference in the 2016 U.S. presidential election. Thanks to tablets, quality physical therapy is just a click away. And it's the latest in over-the-top luxury, an upscale condo building designed by Porsche. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent McCory. This is Africa 54. Now, Federal Bureau of Investigation Director James Comey is testifying on Capitol Hill Monday before the House Intelligence Committee on Russian attempts to interfere in the 2016 U.S. presidential election, including any possible connection with the campaign of President Donald Trump. The committee is also looking into an allegation by Mr. Trump that President Barack Obama wiretapped Trump Tower in the weeks before last November's election. A short time ago, Director Comey confirmed that the FBI is investigating Russian election meddling.
I have been authorized by the Department of Justice to confirm that the FBI, as part of our counterintelligence mission, is investigating the Russian government's efforts to interfere in the 2016 presidential election.
Well, National Security Agency Chief Admiral Michael Rogers is also appearing Monday before the House Intelligence Committee as part of a hearing into Russia's efforts to influence the election. Here's more background on the hacking and wiretapping allegations. Trump has refused to back down on the accusations made in a series of Twitter comments earlier this month, even as a string of officials, including the top Republican and Democratic lawmakers on both the Senate and House Intelligence Committees, have said there is no evidence to support those claims.
Have you seen any evidence of any collusion between what I'll call Trump world, associates of campaign officials, Trump world and the Russians, to swing the 2016 presidential election?
I'll give you a very simple answer: no.
White House spokesman Sean Spicer last week suggested that the wiretapping was carried out by British agents, citing a statement by a legal analyst on Fox News. The British Electronic Intelligence Agency, the GCHQ, dismissed the report as utterly ridiculous. But when asked about it Friday at a White House news conference, Trump deflected any blame for linking the British to his wiretapping allegation. The allegation is part of broad investigations by the FBI and lawmakers into the conclusion by the U.S. intelligence community that Moscow meddled in the election in an effort to help Trump defeat his Democratic challenger, former U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. U.S. investigators say Russian President Vladimir Putin ordered the hacking into the computers at the Democratic National Committee. The anti-secrecy group WikiLeaks subsequently released thousands of emails from the files of Clinton campaign chief John Podesta in the month before the election, showing embarrassing behind-the-scenes efforts of Democratic operatives to help Clinton win the party's presidential nomination. The Trump administration has rebuffed any contention that its campaign aides colluded with Russian officials in that cyber attack. But President Trump risks driving wedges between the U.S. and its closest allies, something America can ill afford. That is according to Republican and Democratic lawmakers. VOA's Michael Bowman reports from Washington.
Last week, President Trump ignored a suggestion by German Chancellor Angela Merkel for a public handshake, then alleged that Germany owes vast sums of money to NATO and the United States for continuing military protection.
Many nations owe vast sums of money from past years, and it is very unfair to the United States. These nations must pay what they owe.
German defense officials rejected the charge. The White House, meanwhile, provoked sharp denials from London after quoting a cable news commentator who claimed that British intelligence spied on Trump at the request of former President Barack Obama.
He used GCHQ. What is that? It's the initials for the British Intelligence Spying Agency.
It never hurts to say you're sorry.
Lawmakers say the president should mend fences with America's allies.
We got to make sure that we're all working together. We live in a very dangerous world, and we can't do this alone.
working together on things like counterterrorism is only successful if these nations and their intelligence agencies trust and have confidence in the United States. So when you hear these outlandish comments, what I keep thinking is that there's a real possibility that the president is undermining these relationships.
Trump says there is no cause for concern, that his meeting with Merkel was great, and that his team isn't the one accusing Britain of anything.
All we did was quote a certain very talented legal mind who was the one responsible for saying that on television. I didn't make an opinion on it.
The cable outlet Fox News later stated that, whatever the opinions of commentators appearing on its broadcasts, it knows of no evidence that Trump was spied upon in any way. Michael Bowman, VOA News, Washington.
Well, Pope Francis asked on Monday for forgiveness for the sins and failings of the Church and its members during Rwanda's 1994 genocide, saying the violence had disfigured the face of the Roman Catholic Church. Some massacres took place in churches where people who had sought refuge were killed by militias. In a meeting with Rwandan President Paul Kagame at the Vatican, the pontiff said he hoped his apology would help promote peace in the African country and contribute to a purification of memory. The Catholic Church in Rwanda last year publicly sought forgiveness for the part played by some of its members, who it said had fanned the ethnic hatred that led to the killings. Now, the increasingly brutal nature of fighting in the Democratic Republic of Congo between the army and the local militia is now on vivid display in the village of Shenke. The bodies of rebel fighters were found dumped into a mass grave last month following intense clashes in central Congo. Government spokesman Lambert Mende told Reuters that the bodies were those of Kumwina and Sampu fighters, and it was the group who had buried them and not the army. The United Nations says it suspects that Congolese forces killed 84 militia members close to the town of Shimbulu between February 9th and 13th. The government denies its soldiers used disproportionate force and says they have recovered automatic weapons from militia fighters after clashes. Now, the mass graves were videotaped by Reuters journalists in central DRC on March the 11th and 12th in and around Shenke. Now, in West Africa, at least 18 people were killed in a freak accident on Sunday when a large tree fell into the pool they were swimming in at the base of a waterfall in Ghana. The victims were crushed and drowned. That's according to a local police commander. The waterfall near the town of Kintampo was filled with weekend day trippers, many of them high school students. 20 people were injured and are being treated at a local hospital. Well, recently we told you about the Aware Migrants campaign aimed at would-be migrants in Africa about the dangers of heading to Europe via the Mediterranean Sea. It aims to reach people in 15 African countries through social media, radio and television adverts. Now, for more about the Aware campaign, Flavio Di Giacomo, a spokesman for the International Organization for Migration, joins me via Skype from Geneva. Flavio, welcome to Africa 54.
Hello.
Yeah. Now, first, how did this idea come about, that you actually need to make people aware, and how did this become your business?
Well, actually, this information campaigns was developed after here. Actually, I am the spokesperson for UM Coordination Office in the Mediterranean. We have been working on landing points for over 10 years now, and we have been gathering thousands of testimonies of migrants who arrived by sea, and we have registered in the last 2-3 years that there is an increasing number of migrants that when they arrived, they told us that they didn't have any actually idea about the danger that they were going to face during the journey, especially in Libya. The violence and abuses they experienced in Libya was a complete surprise for them. So that's why they told me sometimes if I knew, probably I wouldn't take the decision to come. When we heard the stories, so many stories, we understood that there is a gap of information. Those who arrive here do not tell to their relatives at home, those who are potential migrants, about the risks of irregular migration and about the risks in Libya. So we wanted to gather testimonies and to show these testimonies to those who are still at home, not to tell them do not leave, because we don't want to tell that, of course, but before leaving, before taking the decision to leave, just be informed of the actual difficult situation of the journey and of the actual dangers.
Now, many times, including some of the people we've spoken to, those who haven't left tend to feel like my experience will be different than the person who went there before me. Has there been any evidence that perhaps if they have this information, there are a number of people who may choose not to try the journey?
Well, yeah, I mean, we don't have any actual, for the moment, evidence of the fact that people who are informed, they change their mind. But we felt that there was a moral duty from IOM, and we are working here since a long time. We were still working also in Niger and in transit countries to inform those migrants, because actually, you know, migrants who are coming to Italy, they arrive for many reasons. Many of them are fleeing from regimes and persecutions, and of course, refugees are not our targets. We are talking to those migrants who can have a choice, who are maybe they just wanted to go to Libya to find a job, and they are being caught there, stuck in this country, and they decided to go further. No. I mean, we are just trying to understand if this campaign could be efficient and effective to save lives.
Now, because very quickly, because you can't tell who exactly is planning to leave his country, are you targeting about everybody in that country?
Sorry, I didn't understand you.
Are you targeting like millions of people? Because how would you tell who is about to leave?
Of course, we are targeting a lot of people. Okay. We are targeting, since we have a lot of our offices in transit countries, in origin countries, we are working together with them. But most of all, we are working on social media tools, because we know that migrants, they made up the decision to leave and to arrive to Europe or to go to Libya on social media. Okay. So we used a lot Facebook, which also already has our Facebook page of the campaign, 44,000 likes.
Okay.
And we hope that these testimonies of migrants that we are gathering and we are showing, migrants talking to migrants. We are not talking to migrants as IOM. This is an unbranded campaign.
Flav, we'll continue this conversation. Thank you very much. That's Flavio Di Giacomo of the International Organization for Migration speaking to us from Geneva. Now, concerns about North Korea and its increasingly threatening behavior dominated discussions during U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson's first trip to Asia. The administration of Donald Trump is looking for a new way forward on the issues, and clearly finding a way to work together with China on the issue is key. VOA's Nike Ching has more from Beijing.
North Korea tested a high-thrust rocket engine, celebrating what it called the new birth of its rocket industry, just as Secretary Tillerson was in China wrapping up his visit to Asia. News of the test came not long before he met with the Chinese President Xi Jinping. During his visit, he stressed that the U.S. and China both feel a sense of urgency about the situation with North Korea.
We've committed ourselves to do everything we can to prevent any type of conflict from breaking out. And we view there are a number of steps that we can take that are in front of us.
He did not say what steps they might take, and it's still unclear whether they see eye to eye on the issue. Before Tillerson arrived in Beijing, President Donald Trump tweeted that China is not doing enough. Beijing says it's everyone's job to implement the sanctions and restart talks. Earlier in Seoul, Tillerson stated that 20 years of diplomatic and other efforts to end North Korea's nuclear programs have failed. He also said all options are on the table, including military measures. Some argue it's not a tougher approach that is needed, but direct talks without preconditions. Analyst James McKeon spoke with VOA via Skype.
Of course, there's no guarantee of success, but right now the status quo isn't working. Time is not on our side. The North Koreans continue to advance their nuclear and ballistic missile capabilities to the point where they're now not necessarily testing their missiles, they're showing off their missiles capabilities.
North Korea conducted its latest missile test earlier this month. Working together to get the North to change course is something U.S. and China's leaders need to work out face to face. Secretary Tillerson discussed a future visit with Xi Sunday. The meeting between Xi and Trump could take place as early as next month. Nike Ching, VOA News, Beijing.
Well, we want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our show live on Facebook, so check us out and share our show with your friends. And check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Find me on Twitter at VOA Vince McCory. Now, coming up, cutting-edge physical therapy is now only a tap on a tablet away. Stay with us.
I am Sheka Sali, host and senior editor of VOA's international calling talk show, Straight Talk Africa.
Today, we'll examine the tobacco industry.
We pretty much touch on anything that you can think of. Politics, health issues, human rights issues, you name it, we talk about it. The issues that we discuss are pertinent to most people on the African continent. A very, very rare and unique opportunity to interact with their leaders.
Well, Dutch voters' rejection of populists in the Netherlands last week gives hope to European centralists as Europe's big players, Germany and France, head to elections this year with a very real possibility of victories by anti-immigrant nationalists. But as VOA Europe correspondent Luis Ramirez reports, there are questions of whether the Netherlands can truly serve as a test for what is to come in Europe.
Dutch voters have given a second chance to the centrists, despite a wave of anger over an immigration policy that some believe has allowed this tiny but influential nation to become flooded with Muslim newcomers. Anti-Islam candidate Geert Wilders concedes he lost this battle, but not the war he is fighting against a culture he says oppresses women and gay people.
I would have rather been the largest party in this election. It's a pity that we did not succeed in that. We have to wait until the next election, but we are a party that did not lose.
Wilders did not win a majority, but his party gained seats in parliament, while the center-right party, though retaining its plurality, lost ground overall. The Netherlands is a tiny nation with a population of only 17 million people, but it is an economic and cultural giant, a symbol of modern Western liberalism.
These elections matter in the broader picture because the Netherlands is a founding member of the EU, and it used to be a country that set the benchmark for liberal, open governance in Europe.
Europe has reason to be watching the Dutch elections.
They are a big deal because, in a sense, they are the hors d'oeuvre to the main course, which is the French presidential election. So they come at a critical juncture.
Wilders' party's poor showing may not necessarily mean a defeat for nationalists in France and Germany. France was hit by a wave of terrorist attacks in 2015 and 2016. Germany has also suffered a string of attacks, including one in Berlin in December. The Netherlands' experience has been different. It has not been the scene of major terrorist attacks recently. Analysts say that may explain why voters, one more time, have chosen the middle road. Luis Ramirez, VOA News, London.
Well, victims of stroke often face years of grueling physical therapy if they can even find a qualified therapist. Now, a Portuguese inventor has created a computer program that delivers high-quality monitored therapy, and it's just a mouse click away. Faith Lapidus has more.
Alvaro is a stroke victim who is relearning how to walk, and he has constant access to high-quality therapy just by turning on his computer.
We developed a digital therapist that basically works like a human therapist will provide feedback to the patient. So we start by analyzing, digitizing the motion of the patient, which is what we use as a reference for a normal movement. So we start with that, and after that we feed that motion to a tablet where our digital therapist provides feedback to the patient.
It's called SWORD, an acronym for Stroke Wearable Operative Rehabilitation Device, and it works through the use of sensitive motion detectors that patients strap to their body. A tablet program then runs them through rehab exercises and charts their progress.
Between the exercises, there's always a small break that allows recuperation, and it has incentives. At the end of each exercise, the results appear. How many times I did the movements, how many medals I won. There is virtual compensation if you do the exercises well. It's kind of fun and ends up being a bit of a game as well.
Start. The developers say it helps solve the problem of a lack of qualified therapists and allows easy access to therapy at any time. The Portuguese developer is working on a U.S. version of the product and is preparing to launch Sword in the U.S. market. For writer Kevin Enochs, I'm Faith Lapidus, VOA News.
Like Voice of America on Facebook. Follow VOA on Twitter. Join VOA on our YouTube channel. Like, follow, join VOA.
Well, I recently asked our viewers to tell me what do you expect from the Trump presidency as it relates to Africa. And we continue to receive a lot of diverse responses, and I want to share as many as we can with you. So let's get started. Lee Chisale from Blantyre in Malawi says, we Africans have lost focus. We have failed to unite and fight for our corrupt leaders. Stop complaining about Trump and start fighting for your own battles. Well, John Colley from Monrovia in Liberia says, I need a leader like Trump for Liberia because all his efforts are aimed to see his people do well. Tate Sugar exclaims impatiently, do we really expect anything from Trump as African nations? Dave Nunes from Pretoria in South Africa says, I think America is making a big deal about nothing. I'm tired of hearing Americans complain about everything. Well, finally, Didier Rele Mogeng from Botswana says, Africans should stop expecting handouts from the West. Shame on you, Africa. Put expectations on your own leaders. Now, thank you very much for your responses, and please keep them coming. Now, I have our new questions. Do you think your country provides you with enough opportunities for growth, or do you feel compelled to move to another country in order to make it? Well, to participate in our social media segment, visit Facebook. The address is Africa54, or send me a tweet at VOA Vince McCory. Well, it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54. A Porsche-designed condo building brings millionaires running to Miami. We'll be right back.
If you've just joined us, I'm Mariama Diallo, and here is a quick recap of today's headlines. In Nigeria, at least 4 people were killed when suicide bombers blew themselves up in a village on the outskirts of Maiduguri. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, bodies of rebel fighters dumped into a mass grave last month showed the increasingly brutal nature of fighting in the central part of the country between the army and local militia. In Somalia, successive seasons of poor rains and failed harvests are forcing Somalis to flee their homes in the northern part of the country. Finally, in Morocco, music lovers from across the globe gathered for the International Nomads Festival over the weekend. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Welcome back. Here's what's trending. Miami is embracing the notion that homes like cars, handbags, and jewelry should carry luxury designer labels. The trend has spread from Europe, Asia, and the Middle East, where developers discovered a few years ago that luxury branded hotels and homes could command huge premiums that the wealth set would happily pay. Now, welcome to the Porsche Design Tower, a luxury condo development that derives its name thanks to a master licensing agreement with Porsche Design, shaped like a piston driven into sand. The concrete and glass Porsche Design Tower will contain 3 car elevators. Each can whisk a convertible up 60 stories and then slide it into the owner's personal steel reinforced garage. Now, the units are completely sold out if you wanted some. And finally, a new educational augmented reality app gives a digital window to the body's internal organs. Virtually T works using a uniquely patterned T-shirt and was created to inspire young generations about biology. Now, the augmented reality app works using a mobile device's camera, tracking the unique squared pattern on the T-shirt. This allows the technology to digitally construct a seemingly lifelike window to the body, showing organs such as the heart, lungs, and stomach. As the device moves, so too does the realistic 3D model, and that is what is trending today. Now, 8 million metric tons of plastic wind up each year in the world's oceans, harming marine life and entering the food chain. VOA's Michael Sullivan reports a new documentary film called A Plastic Ocean looks at the problem and its solutions.
Plastic sludge and garbage, a blight on the world's oceans. A film crew traveled the globe to document the rubbish. And Julie Anderson of the Plastic Oceans Foundation says what we see is just the tip of the problem.
Half of the waste actually sinks to the bottom, the plastic sinks to the bottom, and that remains on the surface actually breaks down.
The filmmakers found trash in ocean gyres, the circulating currents that trap large concentrations of pollution in the Atlantic, Indian, and Pacific Oceans, home of what some have called a plastic island.
What we found in the center of the Pacific was not a floating island of plastic. What we found was a plastic smog that permeated all the water. And in some parts of the oceans, scientists have found more plastic than plankton.
The debris infects the food chain, sometimes visibly, and more so at the microscopic level, where the plastic particles interact with other pollutants.
Heavy metals, pharmaceuticals, industrial runoff. It acts like magnets. These toxins hitchhike on the plastic. And then when seafood ingests the plastics, those toxins offload into the fatty tissues,
to be consumed by other sea life and by people. China, Indonesia, the Philippines, Thailand, and Vietnam are the worst plastic polluters. The United States, although a leader in recycling, is one of the worst 20 since it produces and consumes so much plastic. There are efforts around the world to address the problem, including at this newly opened recycling center in Lebanon. But Anderson says there is more that people can do.
Cut back on single-use plastics, straws, plastic cups, plastic water bottles, plastic bags, and finding alternatives like reusable materials.
She says healthy oceans are essential to our survival. Mike O'Sullivan, VOA News, Los Angeles.
Well, and that's our show for today. Now be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. For more news, tune in to VOA's evening radio show, Africa News Tonight at 1800 UTC. And in the mornings today, Break Africa between 0300 and 0600 UTC, Monday through Friday. Thanks a lot for watching. From all of us in Washington, have a good night.
Welcome to English in a Minute. An alley is a narrow path between or behind buildings.
Up one's alley.
Does this expression have to do with city streets?
Jonathan, do you have any friends who teach singing?
Hello. I am a singer.
You are? Oh, awesome. Do you